With 1 in every 5 adults in the U.S. experiencing a mental health condition in a given year, we definitely want to talk about some of the ways that we can help destigmatize mental illness and help people get treatment. But before we do that, we kind of want to know, can you give us a recap of what mental illness, what it means to have a mental illness?
Yeah, I mean, I think thinking about it in terms of mental health in general, mental health is just a state of being which takes into account our cognitive, psychological, and emotional health. And there's various forces that work toward that, and taking all of those into account are what we think about when we consider mental health.
Okay. And you know what? We had that conversation about 6 months ago for Mental Illness Awareness Week. We did a little campaign on social media, and I wanted to share some of the responses we got from that, because we got some really positive interaction with our community. And the question that we kind of posed to people was, is working out part of your therapy? And these were some of the responses. Without a doubt. Yes, it is. I used to be so depressed and take medication, but I started releasing all my stress when I started going to the gym. Absolutely true. More people should try it. Yes, the best decompression ever. We also had some other people say, yes, it's the greatest therapy I've found outside of the therapist chair. I've also found a few amazing souls over the past few years and who have shared with me some of their darkest moments and are an absolute delight to see when I walk in the doors. A simple, genuine hi with a smile from the staff members can turn your day around too. Thank you. Another person said, I just signed up, and if it does what a few people have said here already, I can't wait to begin. When I started working out, I not only gained physical strength, but it cured my chronic anxiety. I became more confident, and my social anxiety no longer bothered me. My personal training has been one of the best coping mechanisms for anxiety. Thank you, LAF. So this just kind of highlighted to us that this is really a big deal to people, and it's kind of a bigger topic. And it's starting to gain notoriety now. As well in the media. So can you kind of talk about why you think mental health is becoming so mainstream, I guess, to put it that way?
Well, I think that we are able to tap into other people more easily now. And that's happening with social media. That's happening with, just the internet in general, being able to read newspapers from around the world, have different topics at your doorstep that you probably couldn't 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I think we're more knowledgeable of what's going on around us. And then if we just look at domestically here in the United States, what's happened over the last, let's say 8 to 10 years, we have more people insured than ever. And when you have people that are insured, they're going to seek out care. And that care, sure, it's going to be some of it physical, but a lot of it is also going to be emotional and behavioral health care. And when we have that, we have more interest driving mental health topics, which I love and I'm glad to see, because I think it's something that, people struggle with reaching out. And I'm glad that you hear all these big names talking about it, whether it be on Twitter or various different platforms.
Right. I think, yeah, so, and a big component of that is kind of, I guess like you said, when you're connecting with more people, maybe you develop a little bit more empathy for that. But I kind of wanted to talk about that because mental illness, it's so, like we talked about in our last episode, it's so internalized. Like you can't really necessarily see if someone is injured mentally, so to speak. So it might be hard for everyone, especially those that don't have a mental illness, to kind of, empathize with those people that do suffer from it. So how can we kind of bridge this empathy gap between those that suffer and those that don't?
I think that's a very important question. I'm glad you brought it up. I think first off is, like with most interactions with any human being, is don't try and fix. Mm-hmm. We get into a really tough space when we're trying to fix people. It's being sad and being okay are not incompatible. When you know that someone you work with or lives in your dorm, whatever it might be, is dealing with depression or anxiety, doesn't mean that they can't have a normal conversation with you. So I think that we should speak as if they belong in the group, not that they need to be treated differently or that we have to account for this in some fashion where it would make it very hard for us to be ourselves. I think they want you to be yourself. You want to be yourself.
Right.
It's the only way we really know how to be. And so that empathy can really come through if we see it as, I don't need to fix the situation. I don't need to change anything. I just need to be who I am and let this person be who they are.
Are there specific ways you can engage with someone though that you think suffers from mental illness? Or like you're saying, like kind of be yourself. But if you see I think maybe it's hard for people to see someone struggling with something and not do something about it. You know what I mean? So how do you kind of judge that or know?
Absolutely. So listening. I think listening is the best way. Hear their story, understand, seek first to understand, and, reserve judgment. It's really hard for us, right? We want to judge right from the beginning. Not just people, but scenarios, situations, anything going on, because it's easier for us. It allows us to move forward, to do whatever we were thinking of doing anyway.
Right.
But if we can really reserve judgment, it helps to understand and really allow that person to feel like they were heard, which is probably all they really want out of that interaction anyways.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of found that if you can ask the simple question, why do you feel that way? A lot of times I've seen that kind of had success where it's like you aren't trying to fix them, but you're asking, why do you think you feel that way? And then that just opens the door for them to express themselves further. And it sounds like that's what you're saying is kind of the most helpful, is just letting someone express themselves.
Yeah, seeking first to understand is such a big part of this. And it's something that we, don't always naturally do. It may not be our first impulse. It's not unlike having a friend who's going through a breakup or a friend who's a new parent, maybe. Maybe you've had 2 kids. Maybe you've had 4 breakups. Doesn't mean that whatever worked for you is going to work for them. And doesn't mean that in the 90 seconds you interact with them at the gym, they want you to fix that issue.
It's so true. I wonder why we all, or maybe it's just the guys. I know guys are fixers, but I wonder why we naturally do want to try and do that in that 90 seconds. Cause it's so rational to think like, no, you're not going to do it. That's not what's necessary. Everyone's situation is different, but yet we still somehow feel compelled. And I wonder if it's just, honestly, this is going to go way off, but I wonder if it's just us trying to control the chaos of the universe.
Maybe.
Good to hear from you, Candace. Welcome to the show.
I'm here too, guys. I actually have a few questions for Dr. Doshi myself. Kind of switching topics here a little bit. I want to talk about the effects of mental illness. Exactly. How does mood and emotions, how do they correlate to mental health?
Yeah. So, right. We're all born with a range of emotions and we're allowed to have them. I don't think anyone is going to characterize someone based on just the emotions that they experience. Now, when it becomes an issue is when there's a functional, concern. So if you're experiencing, everyone has sadness, everyone has excitement, everyone has anxiety, but if it's a predominant force in your life and it's stopping you from doing things that you would normally want to do, like going to school, going to the gym, interacting with family, whatever it might be, that's when we step in and say, hey, maybe there's something that we can do here to alleviate this pain that you're experiencing.
Is that like, would one of the telltale signs, this is just an example, but like you just want to lay in bed all day. You don't even want to get out to face the world. Is that kind of maybe a sign like, oh, this is something that's impacting the function of your life? Right.
And, I think some of us, having a day where we lay in bed and don't, interact with anything in the environment could actually be helpful for us one day, But if you notice that, wait a second, it's Wednesday, I was supposed to go to work, I was supposed to meet my brother for lunch, I was supposed to go to the gym at 6, and I didn't do any of that, and I don't feel good about that. I think that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, that makes sense. How much does your environment affect your mental health? Like, can the music you listen to have an effect on your mood?
Absolutely. I mean, I think places like here, places like the gym where there's, fast music pumping that gets your heart rate up, that allows you to kind of move to the beat and get going. I think it's all designed a certain way, right? And it makes sense because I think mood can be affected, especially in the short term, by music. I hesitate to say that it's going to have this long-term effects. We all hear about, play Mozart to a little baby and they'll grow up to be a genius, that kind of thing. I don't know how much truth there is to that exactly, but, if you go to a nice restaurant, you're probably going to hear some light classical music, some piano, and what they're trying to advertise to you is this, relaxation. It's all part of the experience. And I do think that our mood is affected by that. And I do think that we can feel calm, listening to certain types of music. Now, I don't think everyone needs to listen to classical music to feel calm. I think that if, listening to the Hamilton mixtape gets you going, I think that's great.
Yes.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, totally.
It's going to be different for everyone.
Right.
But I think it's more in the moment mood changes rather than super long lasting benefit.